All right, welcome to another session of Pro Marketing Strategies. And we are the Go2Gurus. I'm Stanley, and this is Dan.
Hello.
And we are Stan Productions. All right, so let's talk about a little bit of what we did last week.
Okay.
We'll just jump right into it. So last week we defined the target audience. We determined your POD, which is problems or pains of your prospects, their objections, their desires and dreams, and we also help define who is not your target audience.
Yes. Yeah.
All very important. If you'd like to know more about that, please check out last week's, because we've got a lot to cover today and we need to move right along.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about what's the first part today. We're going to be talking about the actual strategy moving forward once you've defined what you are, who your audience is. Now we're going to go into, okay, what do I actually do from here on out?
Yep. And this actually is kind of where our name comes from, the pro marketing strategies. And that's actually what we're going to talk about is once you've defined those things, now needs to have a system in place that can capitalize on those things and begin to address and engage your audience, which we left off at, last week. And so that's what we're going to be doing today, and kind of going through that and seeing, what does that mean, and how do then we begin to engage our audience in that way. Okay,
so let's take a look at this slide here. We are going to at first, determine the who, what, and how, which is you can see there up top is market, medium, and message. So the market, we've kind of already talked about that a little bit in our last week's, but it's defining who your audience is, who your customer is, and who your least favorite customer would be as well. And then determining your approach is mainly what we're going to be talking about today, as well as I think after this we'll be talking about, next week probably talking about delivering your content.
Actually, today is more content, I would say.
Today is more content. Never mind, I don't know what I'm talking about.
I know, because here's the thing, is you need to know, before you know what to say, you really need to know who it is that you're talking to and where they're at. Therefore, the method of how you want to deliver that message. And again, we talked about those, the first two things, or the first one specifically. The second one, not so much, but today we're going to be talking about the third one, which is what exactly do you say to them? And how can you, again, stand out from your competition with what you say so that your marketing is very effective.
And before we started, Daniel and I were having a discussion about the message and the medium, and I think that's why I got confused, because to me, the way I always approach it is a little bit in a slightly different order, because I usually do market, then I determine the message, and then I determine how I'm going to deliver that message through the medium. So my brain got a little bit mixed up there, so I'm sorry. But message, yes, of course, is determining it, because go ahead.
I was going to say, so an example of kind of what this would look like is, say if we were marketing for a handgun supplier. All right, a good example is you're going to have a wide variety of markets, but specifically you could be catering to both men and women, and of course it's going to be about probably 21 and older, 21 to 40. Why 21? Well, they can't buy a handgun until you're 21. Now, that doesn't mean you couldn't start marketing to them, but the message of what you're going to say will be vastly different than somebody who's 21 or older. And so, but again, you'd have these two categories, these two audiences, and then knowing, okay, where do they hang out? Where are they at? How? What's the medium by which you're going to address them? Again, they're going to be in two different places many times. Now, will they overlap? Sure, they will. But you're going to go to gun shows, video games. That kind of audience is going to be men. It typically is going to be men. On the other side, women, what's the motive that they have for purchasing a handgun? Most likely, and oftentimes, it's for self-defense. And so they're going to be wanting to know training on how to use it, concealed weapons license, all of those things. That's going to be important to them. Now, don't ask me why, but guys typically say, oh yeah, I got that. I know how to handle a gun. I mean, every guy thinks he knows how to shoot a gun. And so that's
pull
not
the trigger, right?
Exactly. That's not going to necessarily appeal to them. I mean, they need to learn those things in order to be able to have a concealed license. But again, you can see how you would then relay that message is going to be different. And then finally, men are going to, again, probably respond more to some type of aggressive approach of what, how weapons are used, explosions and everything. Women, again, are going to be more of a defensive.
Protect yourself.
And let me show you how. And so how then you begin to market to them is vastly different. The locations are going to be different because your audience is different. And so there's one item right there that can have different type of marketing strategies depending on who it is, where they're at, and of course then that determines what you say.
Yeah. Another quick example would be to tackle the hearing aid industry. You could probably pretty quickly define your market by being the market of the elderly, people 40. That doesn't sound elderly, but anyone over 40 who's experiencing hearing loss is probably your most common area. And then you're going to think about the medium. Okay, if they're the elderly in the 70-year-old range, TV is probably going to be your best medium to use. You're not going to want to go on Facebook advertising or anything like that because the likelihood of them being on Facebook is a lot less likely. And then you're going to develop a message of get your youth back. Get your hearing back. Stop saying huh, what?
Yeah.
And that's how you're going to market it. And that's just a really brief example.
Yep.
The next step here is really to have a pro marketing strategy. All you need is a little bit of greed. And
Stanley and I, just a little bit of a background to this is Stanley and I were actually debating back and forth because we wanted to have an acronym here that was memorable and user friendly, and we went back and forth, and this one kept coming up over and over again. We're like, we just got to go with the greed.
You gotta go with it.
It's just easy to remember. So we broke down the pro marketing strategy into the acronym GREED, which stands for grab their attention, relate to their needs, educate them on your solution, entice them to take action, and then duplicate the process.
And so we think that we don't necessarily promote greed, being greedy, but we just felt like you will never forget this.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Unless you define it as strong desire. There you go. Have a strong desire for the marketing strategy. Yes.
Exactly. So we just went over that really quickly, and we're not going to expect you to remember that immediately. So we're going to go through each one individually. We're going to start with the G, which is grab their attention. And why don't you talk about that, Daniel?
Sure. You're gonna recognize this. This isn't anything new, but you're gonna also realize that there's a lot of marketing again that does it incorrectly. Some great examples of that, though they are making money, but it's costing a fortune in order to make that profit. And for small businesses, you probably don't have that kind of marketing, budget that you want to just throw at ads. And we see this in the area of grabbing their attention. Well, what are some things that we see in grabbing their attention? Well, we see Aflac with the duck. It used to be the cavemen.
Geico's notorious for let's just do something different every time. At least they've got the disruptive part right. We talked about that before.
Exactly. Being disruptive, that's important. But grabbing a person's attention, all right, it's important to disrupt them where they're at and break up so that they're in this kind of like this state of they're zoned in on something, and you need to disrupt them. You need to do something that grabs their attention. Now that's important, but the next process, which we'll talk about in just a second, is then relating to them on what it is that they're having an issue with, what is their problem. Because you can get their attention, but if you're not then be able to relate to them, that's where you could very quickly lose them.
Think about it this way, like to use the example of Geico, if someone that's looking for auto insurance is also interested in what? And Geico, a duck, those have nothing to do with when someone is looking for insurance, and that's why we're labeling it as a bad example, because it is not something that is related even directly to car insurance. Maybe car insurance is so boring to sell that they had to do something, but and they have worked just out of sheer saturation. And time and time again, we've been asked by local people, "Oh, I want something crazy like a local, or like a national ad, like Geico or this or Old Spice or whatever." And it's like, that's cool. They have a huge budget. They also have the ability to get it everywhere and to promote it and to kickstart that viral engine.
Yeah.
And so it's it's kind of hard to compare because you don't have millions of dollars to spend on your advertising budget.
Another great example, because I had somebody show me this not too long ago, was the Trunk Monkey. Suburban Auto Group, created this series of little tiny short videos that were viral, that people were loving.
I remember watching it. I do not remember what it's for, though.
Yeah, see,
Exactly.
and there's a great example because, having a trunk monkey really has nothing to do with owning a car. And so though it was really more of a flash in the pan.
Car alarm system.
Yeah, exactly. It was a flash in the pan, and it really brought no significant value of demonstrating what it is they have to offer, why they are, better than their competition. And so though it worked for a short while, again, any of those things will be just that, short-lived. However, an effective marketing strategy done right, it'll last. Until the quality of your product decreases, that campaign will continue to increase and grow over time.
So Daniel, why do companies do the saturation method?
Well, again, the reason why they're doing the saturation method is because ad agencies get 15%. The standard is about 15% of whatever ads you buy. So it makes sense for them to say, hey, buy more ads, do more ads, because in so doing, they get more money.
Yeah, it's basically saying, I make $1 every time they play an ad. What you need is 1 million ad placements.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, duh. For the ad agency, it's like, how can I make more money?
Yeah.
Get them to play more ads. Tell them that they need more ads. And it's like, look, it's effective. Again, but your return on investment, is it really worth it?
Yep.
Do you have the cash to just throw away towards that? Or could you do something that's more targeted? So we've grabbed their attention.
Yep.
And that brings us to the next part, which is...
Well, grabbing their attention incorrectly there. Now let's talk a little bit about grabbing their attention correctly.
Yes.
And that is using what's called hot buttons. All right, a hot button is an activator that is important or relevant to your prospect. All right, an activator is something that is either familiar, such as your name, or something that is unusual, such as a woman in a red dress walking down. You don't see that every day, so it catches your attention. All right, or third one, something that's problematic, such as an alarm system. Breaks you out of it. It realizes, okay, there's an issue, there's a problem. And so you need to use hot buttons in your marketing. You need to find some way. And again, this is where the big ad agencies understand we need to grab their attention. And so they do something totally off the wall, really bizarre. But this is where they also become so ineffective, because they fail then, once they have grabbed their attention, to actually give them something of relevance. And I mean, a good example, a good example of this is, once you give the example then of the name that you were talking about, like.
Well, imagine you're walking through the airport and someone calls out your name. For me, someone yells out Stanley. And now, luckily, I don't have a very common name, so it's usually someone talking to me. So I will immediately turn around and I'll look at that person, and then I have to think, okay, is this? I look at them, and that's where the next part comes in, relating. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But then I look; they've grabbed my attention. They've said my name directly, and then I have to decide: is this someone talking to me, or is there another Stanley here somehow? And that is an effective way to grab their attention. That's something that relates directly to me, my name, something that I care about.
Yes, and that's just how human nature, that's how we work, is as soon as our attention is grabbed by something, immediately the mind seeks to find out new information, if this is important, if this is relevant, and if it doesn't, then it completely dismisses it and moves on.
We go back into autopilot.
Exactly,
mode.
autopilot mode.
I'm cruising along in the airport, someone says my name, I wake up, what? I look over, and then if it's not for me, then back to autopilot mode. I'm walking back to my flight.
And we actually, here recently, I was talking with a client of ours who does design and he was talking to me about how he had done a direct to mail campaign, and his campaign though flopped. He paid quite a few $100s, and he told me it got 0 response, absolutely no. And he spent hundreds of dollars and he got 0 response. I said, "Oh, can I take a look at your, what it is, your mailer that you use?" And so he showed it to me, and I looked at it, and immediately I saw a lot of problems all over it, and I began to just go right down the road saying, "Oh, do you mind if I show you why it wasn't effective?" And he said, "Sure." And so I started breaking it all down. One of the big things is it was way too big. He needed to have usually the best size is actually 6 by 11. It's the largest size that you can have, that you can still fit inside a standard mailbox, and they don't have to fold it. And not only that, but then you would want to put your headline not on the opposite side of the address, because again, law has it that they actually have to put if you ever notice, you'll notice this now, whenever you check your mail, you'll notice that your label and address has to be up. So that's the first thing that they're going to see. So you need to be making sure that your headline is not on the opposite side, buried with the newspaper, but it's on the other side where they would already see their name and label right there. And you need to then also have what we're calling here hot buttons, some type of hot button that grabs their attention, that addresses an issue or problem that they're having very quickly, and it pulls them in. And I basically laid it out to him, and I said, "Hey, here's all the problems with it." And he was just like, "Wow." I said, "You could actually do this again and run it, and I guarantee you would have a greater success rate if we did this." Again, it can't be a standalone thing. It needs to be part of an overall strategy. That's really important as well. It needs to be an overall strategy, but when you do, you have great effect in that kind of marketing.
And to go back to some of the other examples we used earlier, maybe the gun store would be, free box of ammo would be like, "Oh, that's something I'm interested in."
Exactly.
Or, the problem with the hearing aids would be, like, "Are you tired of saying what in your conversation?" It's like, "Yep, I relate to that," and so I want to read the rest of this. So, which kind of brings us into the next part,
Sure.
Which is relating.
So again, in greed, you've got to grab their attention, and immediately then you are needing to captivate their attention. You need to connect with them by demonstrating, okay, what I have to now say to you is important. And so you need to relate to a hot button issue here. And this is typically accomplished through your headlines. All right, in the headline is where you want to begin to relate to them and to show, because again, you only have a few seconds, if that, to be able to prove to them and to show them that they need to read further. So after you've done something bold, you need to then also have something that grabs them and says, "I am talking to you, Stanley," like in the airport illustration. All right, Pomianowski, I'm not talking to a different Stanley. What is it that then pulls them in? And again, this is usually done in what is called headlines. If it's a pay-per-click ad, it's the hyperlink there. If it's a commercial ad on TV, it's usually the first lines. If it's a newspaper, it's the big bold headline. What is it that they're going to see first? And what is it then that you are saying to them? And it needs to be something that relates to an issue that they are having. So let me give you an example, because I think examples are really helpful. I was actually looking through a couple of lawn care services, not because we have any lawn that we need to trim. We live in an apartment, but the lawn care services that we're looking at, this one in particular, lawnworksflorida.com, and I apologize if you guys are watching, and I'm just going to shred your website here in just a second, or at least a part of it. But I was looking at it, and again, it totally, as I was reading through some of their headlines, it was saying things like this: "Your lawn's best friend." I mean, that's ridiculous. That says absolutely nothing. Who else can say that? Well,
everybody.
Pretty much any other lawn care service if they want to. Yeah. All right. It says environmentally safe. Right there, I have no idea what it is that it is, except again, I'm on their page, so I know that that's what they're talking about. But environmentally safe, can any of their competitors say that? They
Probably.
Sure can.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, exactly. but it doesn't give me anything to demonstrate that why are you environmentally safe? What exactly about you is environmentally safe or more safe than your competitor? And finally, there was one that said, let us lead the way to a healthier lawn. It's like, well, I would hope so. I'm not going to expect you to say, oh, we're going to kill your lawn and destroy it so that you have to buy, fake turf and throw it on there. No, all of these things were cliches, and they were really irrelevant in the ability to captivate my attention. And so if I were doing marketing for them, I'd say you got to do away with these headlines. They're not working at all, and you're probably not getting a high conversion rate that you could. If I were them, I would say, okay, put yourself in your audience shoes. Who is your prospect? What needs or problems or benefits would they have? What perhaps would come out of their mouth? And whatever it is that they would say, there's your headline. For instance,
how do I get rid of weeds?
All right, how do I get rid of my weeds? Boom. All right, if that's a major issue that they would have, then there right there is a great headline. Another one, again, instead of putting, let us lead the way to a healthier lawn, I think far more captivating way of saying that would be something like, what can I do when my lawn turns brown? All right, if that's something that they would say, you have an immediate headline that a person, all right, who has a brown lawn, they're going to be immediately say, oh yeah, that's speaking directly to me. I want to read more. And a good way, this is always a good rule of thumb of how to write good headlines is, just as you did, put yourself in your audience shoes. And once you have made that statement, you can turn it into 3 more statements very quickly by taking it and turning that question, what can I do when my lawn turns brown, and turning it now into a statement. All right? Statement would be, what I can do when my lawn turns brown. Then you could change it from first person into second person using the word to. All right? So then you would say what you can do to make what you can do if your lawn turns brown.
And now you've got 2 headlines with one hot button topic. And
exactly.
The more hot button topics you can define, the more you can break it into just tons of headlines. You're just giving yourself tons and tons of material that you can market in one way, shape, or another. But yeah, this brings us to the next part, which is GRE, G-R-E, which is educate them on your solution. I kind of feel like this is a part where you kind of let them in on a secret, or it kind of goes beyond relating. It's a little bit related to relating to them, but it's no pun intended. But it's where you educate them on a solution because you've grabbed their attention. You've now said, hey, I have something that's relevant to you, and here's something that you really need to know. So become the fountain from whence all knowledge about their problem flows. So,
in other words, you want to be seen as the expert. Another way of, instead of E for educate, you could say E for establish your authority. You want to establish yourself as the go-to guru for their marketing needs, and you want to help them establish themselves as the go-to guru for their blank lawn care service, for their attorney service, for their gun store, whatever it is. You need to help them say, now is the time that you begin to educate them, inform them, give them information to show and demonstrate that you know what you're talking about.
I actually recently heard a great article. I can't remember if I talked about this last week or last time, but the one of the marketers for Apple was talking about Steve Jobs and how he hated the terms marketing or branding. And he was like, we aren't marketing. We are just educating people and how to use our products best. And that was all that they did. And they've won awards. And everyone's like, Apple, they're the best at marketing. And here they never thought of themselves as marketers. They were just like, this is what we do. This is how we do it. And if you really have set up yourself as a USP, you are already one step ahead of the game. You've got something to educate them on that no one else can do. You have something that's valuable. You have something that's better than other people. And therefore, all you have to do is tell people about it. If it's better than everybody else, why wouldn't somebody do it if they could realize that it was better? That's basically your main point of that.
No, exactly. And again, a good way to think about this is a good marketer is like a good attorney. You need to be setting up, I mean, a good attorney goes into a courtroom and he doesn't just simply say, jury, members of the jury, Your Honor, my client is innocent, and I think you should just, make that your verdict. No.
Or even better, it comes in and says, my client is the best human on earth. Just uses platitudes. Can you imagine a lawyer just using platitudes like, he's the best citizen here in town? He's not guilty. Look at him. He's the best citizen there is.
He does quality work, and he's the #1 citizen here in Orlando. And then imagine if he suddenly were to pull out and start using puppets by his hand of trying to talk to the jury.
That would grab your attention.
That would grab your attention, but you'd be like, what the heck?
This guy is not an authority.
What if this guy's not an authority? What in the world is he doing? It's not at all, relevant, and what he's having to say is not informative. It's not educating me or proving anything. And again, that's what, sadly, you see so many market campaigns doing. Too many times. They simply grab your attention with a ridiculous thing.
Or the best kept secret. The attorney's saying, he's not guilty, he's the best kept secret. And it's like, but where was he on this date? And it's no, he's the best citizen there is.
Exactly.
It's like, that doesn't stand up in court. That is irrelevant and is not proof of anything. You want to hit them with hard facts that establish that you are better than them and establish that you, as a marketer or as a business, know what you're talking about.
I mean, a good attorney, again, would say, all right, I believe that my client is innocent for these reasons. I have the proof of here. I'm going to be calling these witnesses to the stand. I have this, in evidence A and evidence B. I have this. I'm going to have an authority speak on this and whatever. In other words, he sets up an entire argument to demonstrate and to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that his client is innocent. And so also with marketing, you need to be doing that same thing. You are on trial in a way. You need to prove and to show that you are a quality business. Prove it. Don't just tell me that. You are #1 in your field. Prove it. Don't just tell me that. Show me how those things are. Don't use cliches. Instead, now begin to inform your audience as to why you should be seen as an authority. And I tell you, whoever is producing the most information, sadly, it can be even false information for that. And a good illustration of this is in Nazi Germany in World War II. Hitler recognized, Hitler realized, if I can control the media, I can control the minds of the people. I can portray them. I can portray myself as the father, the Führer, and so in that, used rightly, if you were constantly producing good content and showing and demonstrating that you know what you're talking about, you will then be seen not as a potential, but as the only option for purchasing when you set that standard.
And by the way, we do not endorse the Nazis or Hitler. This is not something you would expect to hear in our lecture today.
Just in case
we are talking about greed.
Yeah, just in case you thought that by chance.
So let's talk about some simple ways to educate them. And
what would be the three things
talked about a little bit already?
Exactly, the three things. The hot buttons. Again, this is how hot buttons are going to be constant here. You need to be educating them. You just got their attention with a hot button. You were relating it to a hot button, and now you've got to go on and show through that hot button. But what are say the three key hot buttons that you want to touch on?
It is objections that people have, benefits, and maybe what their competition is doing. Yes, that's right. So benefits. How does it benefit them? Everybody. Most people only care about what matters to them, the benefits. People almost always have, this. Buying a gun online. I don't know if that's even possible, but it'd be like, is this gun going to be plastic when I get it?
Yeah.
Would be an objection. But then you want to address that. Hey, our guns are just as good as anyone else's gun, even though they are made, they can be purchased online, which I think is illegal. There should be. I don't know. I have no idea. But anyway,
obviously we've
no background check.
To handgun Yeah, companies.
No background check.
A good example of that would be going back to the lawn care service. Okay, a benefit to a lawn care service that a company could say, and again, if I were the lawn care service, all right, I would simply say, okay, what's a benefit? What is it that your client is looking for? Well, probably they're calling you up because they don't want to go through the hassle of pulling out their equipment, mowing the lawn, and doing that. The benefit to them is not only do you not have to hassle with that, but you can spend more time with your family. You can spend time with your kids. All right, you have a greener and cleaner lawn. For X, Y, and Z, giving reasons why they're going to have a greener and cleaner lawn than if you simply did it yourself. In other words, prove to them that I can do it better than you. In fact, yes, you could do it, but I can actually do it better to you, and here's better for you, and here's the reasons why. And if you demonstrate that, now you've capitalized on a benefit. And the second one would be an objection, because again, they're probably going to say, well, I could do it.
Yeah.
I could totally mow my lawn, and you could simply say, yeah, you could. But here's the reason why you would want to have us as opposed to yourself. And again,
for them, the competition is actually the person looking at it is like, I could just mow my own lawn, and then so it's like really competition is free. So you kind of have an uphill battle in that way. One, you've got to convince someone to start paying for lawn care, and tell them. So you've got to tell them I'm better at it than you, and you will win awards. I just had an idea for an ad of a guy with a trophy who's like shooing away the lawn guys for winning a trophy for best yard or something like that. So it's like you won't want to tell your neighbors, something like that. But anyway, which is not necessarily one of these hot button issues either, but unless it's a competitive neighborhood, it's pretty specific. But it's just a fun idea anyway. But moving on. Moving on.
And again, with that is benefits, objections, and competition. Competition being, again, why you as opposed to your competition, in this case possibly them or your competitor. Why not another lawn care service? And I thought, I was like taking a look at a whole bunch of lawn care services, and again, I just was like, so many of them were just bad. I mean, really, really bad. They just look all the same. I could have just swapped out names and I would have never known anything. But I then saw one. I saw one that had, and I thought, wow, it's a gleam of hope. This is going to be a great one. But I went to go click on it, and it was basically, nothing. I clicked on it and it just enlarged it, and there was no more information. I was like, you just lost me. You had my attention. I clicked on it to go get more information, and all it was an enlarged picture of the same thing I was looking at. And basically what it was for the lawn care service, it was saying, June, here are the possible problems or diseases that your lawn may have in the month of June. And then it gave like a few, and I thought, whoa, that's pretty dang cool. I went to go click on it to like give me a readout of how do I read that, how do I know that, or what else, and it was nothing. Absolutely nothing there. And I thought, okay, you had the right idea, but as soon as I want to get more information, there was nothing there, and so I quickly went on to somebody else.
They didn't educate you enough. And this is honestly where a lot of marketing ends, is really at the first two. Grab their attention and say, hey, I'm important to you. And usually, and the worst advertising just stops at the first one.
Yep.
Just grabs their attention. Hey, I have your attention. And then, by the way, I have nothing important to say. I just grabbed it, but that's it. And so the next E, we're on G-R-E. Is
agree.
Is entice them to act. So now that we've educated them, and it's like, what do I do now that I have all this great info, is now it's time to buy.
Yeah. But here's the thing is, realizing that in the sales cycle, all right, if you were to count the sales cycle from 1 to 100, all right, that 100 being at the point where they're going to purchase, the people who are going to be buying today or in the real near future are probably going to be, usually it's like 20%. All right, the 80 and above is the people who are ready to buy. That means 80% of the marketplace that is going to buy, but at a future time, oftentimes is totally untapped, because the marketers are simply trying to get people who are ready to buy right now. And therefore, that's why those cliche types of marketing campaigns will work, because, well, I was going to buy it anyway, so it didn't really matter to me, and so they go and they purchase it. But the 80% of people who will buy at some point down the road, they come across it, not interested because I'm not going to buy it. But if you
not looking into it yet.
But if you can entice them, if you can capture their attention, relate to them, and educate them that you are the fountain of knowledge from whence all knowledge comes, then for
I didn't
that
even
specific
know
topic,
I needed this.
I didn't even know I needed this. Wow! And so you're going in a little bit more, and then when you've got their attention, you entice them with a subtle and simple way of opting in. In the online business, we call it opting in, and pretty much there, it's where you're asking them, you're giving them something of value in exchange for information at low risk to them. Don't ask them to buy immediately your service, buy your product. No. It's often better to simply say, hey, go to my website, make this call, give me your email or your information in exchange for this high value item that I'm going to give you.
I'll give you 10 tips on how to water your lawn and fertilize your lawn.
Yeah.
If you're a lawn business. So
yeah.
I'll give you 10 tips on gun safety.
Exactly.
I'll give you, all sorts of great stuff.
How-tos, top 10, all of those are reports of some sort. Those are great ways that, again, are high value to them because you have the knowledge that you're giving to them and they want that, but it's low cost to you because, again, it's a free report and it's something that can be digitally created and passed on. And so that is the importance then of enticing. That right there, if you were to ask our opinion, really is kind of the make or break point. I know there's a lot of websites that can even grab your attention, they can relate and they can educate, but then they totally forget to entice you to take the action of an exchange of saying, hey, give me your information in exchange for this. And they simply and at that point, all they've done is entertain them, but they really have not enticed them to take action.
Yep, and this is basically, or if you were a salesman, this would be the closing the deal part.
Yeah.
A great example, I saw an ad online that said, do you want to potty train your child? And I have one child that stubbornly does not want to be potty trained, my youngest child. And I clicked on this ad and the video started playing, and it had grabbed my attention, it related to me, and then it began to educate me. And it said, I've ran a daycare, I have trained hundreds of kids on how to be potty trained, and it gave me some tidbits of information. One of it was, you may think that pull-ups are the best way to potty train your child, but the results show that is actually takes them longer. The reason that they do this is because diaper companies want to keep your kids in diapers longer. They make more money. And then the last step was the enticing part. It was, for the price of diapers, you can buy my book. So instead of buying diapers, buy my book. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am going to buy diapers, but for the same price, I could never buy diapers again. I have to buy this. There's no saying no to this. And so that is a great way to entice somebody. Is like, by the way, for the price of this,
demonstrating the value of it. Yep.
You could solve all of your problems right now.
Yeah.
Any other examples of that?
Yeah, and another example is in the area of, say, real estate. Is everyone going to be buying a house now? Probably not. Will they at some point in their life? Probably. And so there's a real fine niche then, a fine narrow of that 100 percentile of people who buy. They're going to be buying a house now. It's going to be a very, 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 very small amount. And so if you ignore the rest of the 95% of people, when they do come to the point of purchase, there's so many to choose from. I mean, marketers, again, in big companies realize this, which is why so many of them market to children. Because they think if we can begin to instill into the children the uses of a credit card, have fun with a credit card, hey, it's just
smoke some cigarettes,
some cigarettes, or hey, try these, whatever it is, hey, just recently, my son we got a gift in, and it was a remote control, just a play remote control, and you hit the button, it's like, I'm in control of the TV, switching, surfing channels,
cell
is
phones,
the thing
for
to
example,
do. I was just
cell
like,
phones.
it's like, no way, I'm getting that thing out of there. I'm not going to brainwash my kid to love the TV that way. So it's just like, they realize this, and so we too, as marketers and you as business people, need to realize I need to be capturing my audience earlier on. And this is a great way of doing it, by having a subtle and simple way of low risk to them opt-in, that as they realize you know what you're talking about, when that day comes that they're ready to buy, you will be the person in the company they go to.
It's Apple also does this in a kind of a more subtle way, where they have all their products are very much related, and you can come in at a cheaper price point, the eMac, than maybe just the iPhone. But then you're like, everything I buy on my iPhone also works on my iPad. I better buy my iPad. Oh, my iPad would go great with a computer. Maybe it's time for me to switch from PC to this, luxurious Mac computer. And that's it's enticing, just slowly, like, come on, everything's related here. We're all together.
And you'll see this a lot online with free trials, free 30-day trial, or $1 trial, or hey, first week's free, first month, whatever it is.
45-day money-back guarantee.
Exactly. These are all ways that, again, it lowers the risk, so it draws them in, and then when they are on the inside, they begin to realize, wow, these people are amazing. Or they're for some companies, they're thinking, once I get them in, the ability to leave, though easy, many times people say, that's all right, I'll just go ahead and continue to pay that monthly fee, it's only $5, only $10 a month. And so again, but without that low risk incentive that entices them to come in, then there is no transaction, a larger transaction down the road. So what's the last one?
So we are on GREED, which is for duplicate the process. So now that you've got your whole system set up, you don't want to just do it once. You want to do it over and over and over again. And the more you can automate it, the better. Because automating the follow-up system is a great way to duplicate it. I've set up this series of things, and now I just want to make this easy. In each step, I want to kind of do the same thing. Re-grab their attention. When I send them an email, I want to grab their attention. I want to give them something to relate to. I want to educate them. I want to entice them to buy again, or to buy something else, or to get them closer.
At the next level,
Bring them from that 20 to 100, slowly but surely. Bring them from 20 to 40 this time, from 40 to 60 the next time, stuff like that. And one of the things that we have found is that 7 points of contact is kind of the magic number before someone will purchase from you. So it's great to maybe grab. First point is your flyer, your website, your TV ad, whatever. That's your first one. You get them to go somewhere. You get them to opt in. That's 2. You get them to you email them a few times, and then maybe call them as your 7th step.
And again, this is. But the power of this is that you could do GREE all the way up, but if you do not duplicate this and specifically automate it in some form of email or text messaging or voice messaging that's automated, that again is one and done. Once you've done it and created it, it's more hands off. Then it's more monitoring and tweaking it. Once you can do that front end piece that we just talked about, when it gets to the duplicatable part, it'll just explode. But just because you do that front part, if you don't have an automated system set up in order to be able to replicate and to continue that process, you'll get an influx of people who will mad dash, get in, but then with no follow-up.
Why am I here?
Why are you here? And so that is so important, that you have a follow-up system that is able to then duplicate and automate this entire process.
Think about it like planning a party. If you sent out just invitations, but then you didn't buy any food, you didn't get any decorations, you didn't plan anything, and it's like people are going to come and be like, this is the party. Like, I'm not telling any of my friends about this except about how terrible it was. And maybe they'll leave, and maybe they're not going to have a good time. And so you've got to be able to duplicate. Like, every part of the party has to match that invitation. You've got a theme set up. You've got expectations from all of your guests coming in, and so you want to make sure that you continue the excellence that you've done in your marketing, and keep it going in your information. And
I think that's it right there. A party, a good party, is a great illustration then of, again, sending out the invitations. Again, you want to be sending it to the right address. calling them by name, saying, hey, you're invited to this. They read a little bit more. You want to draw them in, relate. Wow, I get to, this is a character or a masquerade or whatever.
Yeah.
Ooh, I've got to, get all dressed up, and they start to then prepare. They come in or whatever. But again, the party's like totally like you've not prepared for them coming in.
Yeah, imagine being invited to a masquerade party, but when you get there, nobody else.
Masquerade.
The person that's throwing the party is like, oh, oops.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have nothing for you now that you're here. I just wanted to have a masquerade party.
Yeah.
And I was hoping that you guys would all just do that. And it's like, no, you as the business owner or marketer need to make sure that the whole system is in place to keep duplicating it. And even after they bought something, don't just throw those people away. They're now your customers. Treat them like they're your friends and keep educating them, keep giving them stuff of value, and they will keep coming back to you instead of other people for services.
And in a future webinar, we'll get a chance as well to talk about how to then leverage your current customer list and your current customers to be able to even expand and get more, through testimonies, through referrals. All of that process is so important that once they purchase, that's good, but that's not the end. That's not the end at all, and therefore
kind of the beginning in many ways.
What happens after that? Because again, a satisfied customer is one of your best marketing tools, because people trust other people, especially friends and people that they know. And just recently, my wife and I were looking at a travel agency, kind of a whole setup in their system, and the thing that was so riveting and captivating to us was watching all the testimonies of saying, here's what I was like, and now this is what has happened. Here's what it was amazing to me, because the presentation was actually pretty bad. I mean, I would have stopped watching it. I would have literally stopped watching if it hadn't been for somebody saying, you need to watch this. So I was like, okay, I was going to, but the testimonies, that's what actually continued to keep me going, this is really intriguing.
Yeah, and I had the same experience. There's a bank company out there that is just a credit card, just a debit card actually, and they will pay for all ATM fees, and all sounds really great. But I was still like, that sounds bizarre. But they were like, oh, are you still sitting on the fence? Just check out this Twitter post. And it was somebody's Twitter post, and it was, they were like, we're going to invite all of our members to answer this. And it was just all of the members. And there was some good and there was some bad, but it was like mostly good. And I was like, wow, this is great. I wanted it for my business. Unfortunately, the bank account didn't work for my business. But so otherwise I would have immediately purchased it, but or switched over to it. But it was like very effective to see all of the positive feedback. Is like, okay, this isn't just a company telling me that they're good. It's actual real people using it, telling me that they're good and that they're worthwhile. And unfortunately, I tend to believe the average person more than I believe, the marketing, which is something that you as a marketer and a business owner will also have to tackle.
Yep. But. So in closing here again, greed. Don't have greed, but just do greed. No,
use greed.
Yeah, there you go. Use greed to your advantage. Leverage it.
So
and in closing, we have some resources there that we'd like to share for those of you who are again, perhaps a lot of you are familiar with these, but this is some recommendations that we would have with MailChimp, Aweber, Constant Contact, or the huge Infusionsoft. These are ways of automating the process, and some of them are extremely costly, others are less costly, but those are some ways that you can begin to use those tools into your business. And again, if you feel like, oh my goodness, I don't even know where to begin, okay, what do I do with these? Not a problem. There's Pro Marketing Strategies, and that's what we're here for. And we'd be able to come alongside and do consulting, or being able to actually come alongside and help you and assist you with your marketing campaign.
Yep. And thanks for checking out Pro Marketing Strategies, GREED, which is grab your attention, relate, educate, entice, duplicate. And so you have today learned about our PMS greed. Hopefully that helps you remember it. Pro Marketing Strategies greed.
All right.
The PMS greed.
All right. Well, I'm Daniel.
And I'm Stan.
And this is the Go2Gurus for Pro Marketing Strategies. See you next week.
All right.
Any comments
And
or
now we're
questions
out.
on there?